vehicle. It's about as premium as yesterday's leftovers. Grandma's leftovers, huh? You know, meat and potatoes, the good stuff, the simple stuff. Just don't reheat the potatoes, huh? You know that Jeep is getting serious when they make a big deal about using real bolts in the gear lever here, in the grab handle, also known as the oh shit handle. But sarcasm aside, it is really an all-new vehicle and it is not a gimmick. I know it doesn't look like an all-new vehicle, but believe me, it is. Every panel is new. They've used new lighter materials, so they've saved over 90 kilos compared to the outgoing model, which is very handy, particularly when you consider they've also updated the engine. The Pentastar 3.6 liter V6, which now makes 284 horsepower, somewhere around there. It's basically out of the Grand Cherokee. And except instead of the Grand Cherokee's 9-speed, which I don't really like anyway, it's got an 8-speed that's optimized for this vehicle. It's a lot more refined because the gearbox is really much smoother than the old car, from what I remember driving around Dubai. One of the key things regarding GCC spec cars is that they've upgraded the cooling system, which is obviously important for us. We also get different bumpers and some different materials. For example, we get an aluminium bonnet. Some markets get a steel bonnet. The cool part about every Wrangler is the foldable windscreen, which is pretty much legal in every market, and also the removable roof. It's very handy for off-roading. Unfortunately, sometimes if you get a particularly difficult trail or some rocks, you will hear a couple of squeaks and rattles around the roof area. On the road, yeah, wind noise, tire noise, road noise. Honestly though, compared to anything else in this class, it's no worse, probably no better, and it's a compromise that most people that are buying a vehicle like this, they're willing to accept because it's so capable off-road. The Sahara model I'm driving at the moment comes with road-based tires, and obviously the Rubicon comes with serious off-road tires that make even more noise on the roads. So be careful when selecting the Wrangler for you. If you ask me, the Sahara is more than enough, but you know. You can also remove the doors for the full-on Wrangler experience, and I kind of like that. I mean, I do complain often about crossovers and watered-down cars today. Let's pick on the Chevy Blazer. That used to be a legendary vehicle back in the day that Chevrolet launched, I think in the 70s, to go up against the Ford Bronco. It was all about utility, and it's just come back to life as a very, very lifestyle-y crossover. And to me, that's not really the way to go when you have a heritage model in your lineup. Wrangler, you know, after 70 years of doing pretty much the same thing, they weren't about to change the styling, they weren't about to change the philosophy of the car. But it could have very easily gone wrong. It could have become too retro, too gimmicky, too dishonest. There's nothing dishonest about this car. So I like the fact that Jeep really took their core buyers, the off-roaders. They took them seriously and gave them a vehicle that's even more capable than before. Big Dana axles, 4.1 ratios, 2-speed transfer case, locking everything. With all the technology on board, over 70 safety systems, electronics, the car makes it a little bit easy to go adventuring. Maybe that's not a bad thing, but I would, prefer to have a stick shift and a little bit more action on the trails. For the Middle East, you can't even get a stick shift. The 6-speed is available in other markets, but the 8-speed automatic is the only one we're going to get. Additionally, we're not going to get the choice of a 2-liter turbocharged engine. You can probably guess why. Nobody would buy one anyway. It's numbers that count in our market, so the 3.6 is the one we're getting. I remember when I first tried it, it wasn't my favorite V6 on the market, far from it. Raspy, a bit rough up top in the rev band, but I'm not noticing that today, or I didn't down on the road on the highway. And I'm guessing it has a lot to do with the new 8-speed transmission, like I was saying before, because it's been specifically mapped for this car and the shifts are very smooth. One of the other things that they've improved compared to the old car that I noticed is when you kick down in the old Wrangler, you used to get alerts forward, but now it's a lot more refined. I can easily see someone using this as a daily without any issues. Like I said, the compromises are sort of comfort based. But then again, you come somewhere like this and everything looks like a piece of cake. Another big note is the interior. You still get acres of plastic. The glove box is a bit ridiculous. Another thing I have to add is that the interior is much improved this time around. Jeeps were never known for quality interiors. Because all the touch points are a lot better. There's a lot of leather and soft touch materials. You still get a lot of plastics too, and some pretty poor plastics at that. It depends depending on spec, because some of the things that you touch, like the grab handle, might be very, very, very rough. It was very rough in the other car that I drove. But then Jeep comes back with the price. You're looking at 130,000 dirhams for this car in our market, which is very cheap. In fact, the Middle East is the cheapest place where you can buy a Wrangler around the world. So some low points you have to accept. These rattles and squeaks, I don't know. I don't know so much. But I'm presuming Jeep guys will get used to that or just ignore it anyway. In the back you got a lot more room. You really didn't have room in the old Wrangler, even in the big 4-door version. In this one you get room because they've increased the length of the car, they've increased the dimensions, but really the key bit is the wheelbase, right in the area where, in the legroom area of the rear passengers. And also you must note that Jeep is very careful not to call this car an SUV. I haven't heard anyone refer to it as an SUV yet. They keep saying UV. And that's very correct, because there's nothing sporty about this thing, even though the base model is called the Wrangler Sport. And I like that. Again, they're not trying to fool anyone. They're very honest, but they're being completely honest with what they're giving people. They're giving people a usable utility vehicle. I should have probably started with a disclaimer actually, because I must admit I didn't head into this thing completely objectively. I've been thinking about the Jimny these days way too much. Suzuki Jimny, which has really got my attention. And so I kind of came to Austria thinking, it's not going to be as cool as that thing, but after a couple of days, I totally get it. So it's a premium model, it's a premium brand and an image, but it's not a premium vehicle. It's about as premium as yesterday's leftovers. Grandma's leftovers, huh? You know, meat and potatoes, the good stuff, the simple stuff. Just don't reheat the potatoes, huh? The Rubicon is the real deal. It's got Dana HD axles and you can get it with 33-inch tires. These cars come with winch-ready bumpers. It's pretty much accessorized from the factory. And the thing is that the Mopar accessory is also available right from launch. You don't have to wait till next year or anything like that. You can personalize your car, make a bit of a monster Wrangler for the dunes, right from the factory. And once you've removed everything, all the things that are removable or foldable, windscreen, roof, doors, another nice touch is that the designers have allocated these little pockets for all your bolts. Everything fits perfectly so you don't lose anything, and they really thought about things like this: storage spaces, compartments, cubby holes. They're everywhere. On the back of the seats you can spec like a mesh that comes inspired by backpacks. The cargo area is, you can organize it any which way you can. It has a false floor underneath for your shop, and you can spec this 7-inch screen, which is very handy. Get all the off-road tricks on it, letting you know how close to the limits you are. Speaking of limits, you got 36 degrees approach angle and a 28-degree breakover angle, pretty much leading specs in the segment. You can also afford water up to 700 millimeters. We are in the Sahara, so we have to follow the Sahara Trail. Watch low left. Honestly, all I'm doing here is just feathering the throttle, and the Wrangler is doing everything else. And for once on a press launch, the trail is serious stuff. It's not just a dirt road. I remember the Jeep Compass press launch in Portugal. That was basically just a dirt road. And this is the real deal. You either bring a tractor to this forest or a 4x4. To be completely fair, it's very much an acceptable level of compromise when it comes to the squat dive, body roll through the corners and everything. Because the steering is on the tight side, there's no play in the center, you're fine. You know, you get the confidence to drive this car on the road absolutely fine. In very simple terms, they've optimized absolutely every part of the car without actually changing the car, if you know what I mean. It's still a Wrangler. They really aimed high with the whole instrument cluster and the dash as well, because you do have a lot of toys to play with on the screen, and you have a very nice digital display right in front of you. That gives you most of what you need. Compass, speed and stuff like that. And the cool thing is that in the JL you can change the four-wheel drive modes on the fly up to 88 kilometers an hour. Hopefully you won't go back in time. And the Jeep guys do know how to have fun. For example, the designers have crammed this car full of Easter eggs, so you can find the little Jeep outline all over the place. I mean, this is the obvious one on the gear shifter. You also get these cool topography maps on the mats, on the floor mats. And yeah, that's a challenge for you, finding all the Easter eggs. I think there's more than 10, more than a dozen around the car. There's one on the windshield right there. I was too lazy to find all the others. I'm just going to cheat and ask them to show me where they all are. Yeah, you can probably tell that I'm almost not even paying attention to the trail. Honestly, the Wrangler makes it too easy. That's the only complaint I had. I think I was saying that before. That's the only complaint I have. With all this tech on board, with all the kit and with so much capability, yeah, I don't know what's the limit. You need to take it Mount Everest. But so what I'm saying is it's maybe taken the involvement of driving away a little bit, just because it makes it so easy to go up a dune, up a mountain, up whatever you want. I guess that's the point. Why make it complicated if you can make it simple? This is properly steep. You wouldn't even be able to walk up this, and what I'm going to do now is try it in 4 high. You do notice a slight difference, a little bit more wheel spin, but you're still going up the thing. On the way down, you can use the hill descent or just put it in first gear and just roll down. It's the same thing. Again, just making life simple for you. And Jeep is not being naive, you know. They know that very few customers actually go off-road. When we're talking about premium brands, your X5s, your Mercs and those kinds of SUVs, we're talking about 1% of customers that actually ever go off-road. With the Wrangler, it's maybe in the double digits, but still, these people, they want to just dream about it. They want to know that if they have to drive through Africa tomorrow, they can do it. And that's the whole point, arming you with this subconscious belief that you can do anything. The freedom to go anywhere. You do feel that. You honestly feel that if you just turned off the trail right now, you'd be fine. You know, unlike things like the Blazer and all these other wannabe off-roaders, this car doesn't come with all-independent suspension. You still get big, beefy, solid axles, just like a Wrangler should be, just like any off-roader should be. Does it have any competition? G-Class is hardly competition. Land Cruiser, hardly. You'd have to be looking at stuff like maybe the 70 series Land Cruiser, which you can barely buy. You can't even buy it in most markets. You'll have to be looking at maybe the Patrol Super Safari, or cars that cost twice as much. So really, until the next Jimny comes along at about 60 grand or something like that, and come on, it's half the size, with a 1.5 litre engine. This is probably the last true, honest, authentic off-roader left on the market. Unless your market has the Lada Niva available.